José Ramos-Horta.
Good evening, you all. Good evening, Ambassador Kamal Fadel of Western Sahara. He's accredited as ambassador to Timor-Leste. Timor-Leste is one of the many countries that have extended full diplomatic recognition of the Sahrawi Democratic Arab Republic. Those of you who are here, I presume you know the basics about Western Sahara, and I presume Kamal must have already introduced you to the historical facts, the legal basis of these of the claims of Western Sahara and the roots of the conflict. I will just, how you say, add some reflections, some thoughts on the problem of Western Sahara as I know it. Western Sahara is no different in terms of its rights to independence, to self-determination, no different from East Timor, from Namibia, from the then Southern Rhodesia, the transition over to what became known as Zimbabwe. No different from so many other European colonial possessions in Africa, Asia, and the Caribbean. Timor-Leste and the Western Sahara, with so many others, were listed as non-self-governing territories under Resolution 1541 of the UN General Assembly way back in the 60s. In 1974, Spain, then the administering power of Western Sahara, made a fateful mistake, which later they regretted, when they agreed to the partition of Western Sahara into two parts. One part to Morocco, one part to Mauritania, and if Algeria had wanted, it would have gotten a third part, so it would have been partitioned three ways. Algeria stood by the principles of self-determination of colonial peoples, stood by the principles of self-determination for the people of Sahara, so did not participate in the so-called Madrid tripartite agreement that ceded the territory of Western Sahara to Morocco and Mauritania. This is one detail that completely defeats Moroccan claims to Western Sahara. Morocco claimed to be the inheritor, the successor state to the Spanish Western Sahara. And if you claim this based on your convictions, then you would never agree so easily to the partition of a territory that you claim to be yours. But Morocco happily, gladly, in '74, agreed to the partition of the territory of Western Sahara into two parts, Morocco and Mauritania. It's a bit like, you know, let's say Portugal had agreed to the partition of East Timor into three parts. The main island for Indonesia, or Waikusi for Indonesia, more logic, East Timor for Australia, and Atauro Island because it has some strategic value to the Americans. So, and we all gladly, until someone changed his mind. In Mauritania changed his mind a few years after, under pressure from the Polisario Front. They gave up because the cost, the cost they were enduring with Polisario assaults on them. Polisario shows the weak link in their approach and went after Mauritania. A few years later, Mauritania sued for peace with Polisario Front and gave up their part of Western Sahara. So this shows the fallacy, the falsehood of Morocco claim, that it is the historical, legitimate successor state to Spanish Western Sahara. When you're so willing to enter into a partition with the colonial power And so it doesn't really prove how Morocco can claim that it has profound roots and in Western Sahara. It's more political and economic experience here. So that is the reality. And of course, as you know, a vast majority of African states, only half a dozen, vast majority of African states recognize the existence of the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic. Western Sahara for many years was even held the chair of Vice Presidency of the African Union, full member of the non-aligned movement. So it has a widespread, full diplomatic recognition, particularly in Africa. And Africans are among the most sensitive when it comes to the issue of inviolability of